All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Chris. This is Mike. We're co-founders of BruVue, and BruVue is a beer data company, and we tap into data with the Internet of Things. Our team has a lot of experience from surgical robotics to cloud development, finance, and even beer. So BruVue got started one day when Mike called me up in frustration with a problem.
Yeah, I got a call that day from my boss, and he asked me to do an inventory check in all my accounts. So that meant I need to tell him when this keg was tapped, how fast this beer was selling, when this keg's going to kick, and most importantly, how much beer is left inside the keg. I didn't have the answers. I tried calling my accounts. Most of them didn't pick up. The rest, they had no idea. Ultimately, I had to drive account to account, walk in their cooler, lift and shake heavy kegs and say, I don't know, 32%. It's not an accurate method at all. So the inability to know how much beer is left inside a keg creates problems for the entire beer ecosystem. Breweries, they have no way of knowing their ad or product performance at the taps. Distributors have no way of knowing their inventory levels in the field. And bar owners lose on average $12,000 a year from waste and theft.
We have solved this problem at BruVue, and we are the only draft inventory management system on the market where you can order your sensors online, receive them in the mail, drop them on your beer faucets, and set them up in minutes. When you receive the system, you'll log into our dashboard, and it's going to look something like this. And the first thing you'll do is, if you have a delivery from your distributor, you'll have kegs, you'll have cans, you'll have bottles of various things, and you'll want to enter them into your inventory management system. It's a mobile web app built on open tools, including React, and you can simply click plus, plus, minus, minus, or add something from our database. And so that looks something like this. And so you can imagine adding beers to a database across the US, there are just thousands and thousands of different types. So, having a database that's up to date, that's up to speed, has the most recent products, to make this a painless process for our users is very important. And so that's where BruVue leverages open data. The type of data we use from breweries are what beers are that brewery producing. You can imagine with the pressure craft beer is putting on the market, product innovation is just accelerating. So there's more and more new products every single day. Where are those beers located? Are they regional? Are they local? Are they close to the bar? And availability of those products in the market, as well as beer specific information: beer name, brewery name, ABV, IBU, style, flavor. You can imagine wine descriptions and how important that is in wine tasting. Well, the same goes for beer. That's a very important aspect of selling beer to consumers. And most recently, calorie information has been mandated to be on food menus. So it's important for the bar owners to have on their menus. So open data helps BruVue, minimizing the effort for already very busy bar managers in terms of knowing, inputting their data into the system and having the system help them. So, having a database of products that are accessible to them, as well as, ultimately optimizing their lineup and having a better product portfolio for their consumers. So.
A little further look inside of our dashboard. So if you look, this is our on tap page. So clearly you can see all the kegs that you have on tap. You're also able to see the keg levels in real time with percent and how many days it's been on tap with a quick description of that beer. We also then can show you on the left-hand side is a pie chart. So that's going to be all the beers that you have on tap, how well they're performing. We can also show you the ounces of that day. So total ounces of that beer poured for that day, so that you can cross-reference with your point of sale to make sure that beers were sold matches beers that were rung in. So our data dives even deeper. We can then go every single pour event. So every time the handle's pulled, we can say how many ounces are coming out. So for example, October 28th at 1:03 p.m., there was a 16 ounce of Stella poured. One of the main questions is, what do you do about foaming? Foaming is a big issue. So with our graphs on the left, you'll see the graph. If you have a nice even graph, then everything's pouring well. If you don't, two main characteristics happen when you're pouring and foam comes out. You pull the handle open, you see foam, you go, ah, crap, and you shut it off. So it's a real small pour. Or the exact opposite. You let it open, beer just flows and flows and flows, and bartender's standing there, and it just keeps going. So you get high spikes. So very uneven. The other way that we measure waste is by doing keg yields, and we can do it by days, and then we can break it down by hour. So you can see, was the bartender on Friday at 2 p.m. shift actually ringing in their beers?
Our data is valuable and useful to everyone across the beer ecosystem, from bars to distributors to breweries. And so for breweries, our data allows them to validate ad and product performance. Pushing a new product out the market, you want to know immediately, was it accepted? Is it moving? Maximizing your marketing spend. Real-time data enables them to see, well, did that ad at the beginning of the Super Bowl perform equivalently to that ad at the end of the Super Bowl? For distributors, knowing their account inventory levels out in the field is important for staying ahead of trends and practicing lean supply chain. For the bars and restaurants, saving $12,000 a year in waste and theft and identifying opportunities in your portfolio. So we're already working with some of the biggest names in beer to bring this data to those who can benefit from it. We're excited to announce that we recently signed with a couple large franchises just in the past few weeks, such as Foodtastic and John's Incredible Pizza. So at BruVue, we believe that the beer supply chain is one of the last to be fundamentally disrupted by technology, and we believe we can do that by tapping into data. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Everybody loves beer. So I just have a couple of questions for clarity. It does seem like this is an inventory management system, so I want to make sure that I understand your end users are really just on the sales sides. It's not the consumers. Is that correct?
That's right. Our end users for now are a manager of a bar who, has inventory to take control of, or maybe it's an analyst at a brewery that wants to monitor product performance and see real-time data to see how their products are performing.
And do you plan on actually making it more of a consumer-based product so the average Joe can see where to find their favorite beer?
Yeah, absolutely. All of that plays very well off of our product portfolio, so it's definitely in the plans.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can you talk more about that product portfolio? Other ways that I imagine you plan to expand beyond this?
Yeah, in beer, if you look at the value of data of connecting the supply chain in beer, just like any supply chain, the goal is to have the right product at the right time for the right consumer. And so, product inventory data is sort of half the picture, but consumer data is that other half the picture of knowing, folks' preferences and wants and those types of things. So being able to analyze past the consumer story and the history of that, and then connect them with the product that they would most want is kind of the vision. So I guess without getting into too much detail, you can kind of imagine like all of the different features that could play into it.
It seems like you are just going to have really granular data into the supply chain down to like all sides of the country. Do you think there's a way you could leverage that in like really acute situations? So like when the hurricane hit and Wilmington came out completely cut off, like could you like flip a switch and say, instead of shipping beer, we're going to ship water, and we're going to figure out the right person to get that water to the community?
Yeah, I think so. If you can imagine how our data can play into the distribution supply chain and incorporating that with other, disaster data, knowing route mapping. One of the stories or examples we tell folks is, with real-time data, we can predict which bars are kicking the most kegs on a Friday night to reroute trucks accordingly. So, to play that data into rerouting trucks for other purposes, such as delivering water, I think is very well within possibility.
I have a question about the tech. So I'm looking at the positioning of the sensor on the tap. Does it measure the movement of the tap or the flow of the beer?
Movement of the tap. It doesn't touch the beer at all.
All right.